Hey, this is Aaron Rabinowitz for CreativeCow.net. Okay, everyone complains about the weather, but I intend to actually do something about it. Of course, I intend to make it look worse, which is not what people usually mean when they say that, but hey, you gotta start somewhere, right? So today, we're gonna look at how to replace the weather in your filmed footage. So, here is the original shot, which, as you can see, is a mostly clear sky over the ocean. And this is what our final shot is going to look like. I'm just kidding. This is the final shot I'm going for, and as you can see, the weather is looking much more unpleasant. And then this here is the shot with some lightning added in, if I were inclined to do that. Now I'm going to handle this tutorial a little differently than I usually do. For starters, there are no exact settings here. What you do will vary wildly on a case-by-case basis, so what I'm really doing here is showing you several techniques in this process, and hopefully it'll help you in your own work. If you want to learn even more about replacing skies and elements in your scene, check out Creative Cow leader Andrew Kramer's tutorials on sky replacement and set extensions. The other difference in this tutorial is that where I usually go step by step, I may kind of jump around doing things to correct my work as I go. Also, I may just jump forward in time to where I finally got an item set up. Not because I'm hiding any secrets, I'll make sure you see everything. Rather, I just don't want to make you sit through my nudging pixels around. Okay, enough said, so let's rain on this parade, shall we? Here I am in After Effects with my ocean footage already in place. Next, I'll drop in a picture of some clouds. By the way, I got this still image from a video found in the products called Real Clouds, which you can find at videocopilot.net. Okay, ultimately, I want more of the clouds in the shot, and since the image is much bigger than I need, that means that I'll have to scale things down a bit. With the cloud layer selected in the timeline, I'll hit S to reveal the scale property. Then, I'll scale it down to a nice round number like 82%. Nice and round. So how did I come up with that number? Well, here's a little secret. I sometimes do these projects ahead of time so that I actually know what I'm talking about, or sound like it anyway. This is not my first time doing this, and you'll have to find whatever number works for you on whatever picture and background you're using. But anyway, let's position these clouds a bit. I want the clouds to sit over the horizon, just like so. Of course, this isn't quite right. We have a hard edge here at the bottom and a mountain in the right corner, so that's not going to work. But no worries, we'll just mask that out. With the cloud layer still selected, I'll activate the rectangular mask tool and use it to create a mask that cuts out the mountain at the bottom and that extends past the edge of the image at every other side. Just drag it across and adjust as needed. You know the deal. Then, with the cloud layer still selected, I'll hit F to reveal the mask's feather property. Then, I'll set the feather property up to about 25. The goal here is to create a nice blend between the clouds and the original background. You may need to play with your mask a bit until it's just right. And you'll probably need to readjust the position of the clouds as well, just so that it sits above the horizon. In fact, we're going to animate it from left to right across the sky, but I'm going to do this very subtly and slowly. I don't want it to look cartoonish. So, I'll set the first position, and with the cloud layer selected, I'll hit P to reveal the position property in the timeline, and then on my first frame of the composition, I'll use the keyframe stopwatch to create my first position keyframe. Then I'll move down to the last frame of the timeline and move the clouds a little to the right, which will automatically set a new keyframe. Again, at this point, you may need to readjust. Do a RAM preview and see how it looks. Remember, the goal is to create a subtle motion, not fast motion. Don't get me wrong, clouds do move fast in severe weather, but they also evolve, which we can't do very realistically with a still image. Plus, the clouds further back seem to move slower relative to the clouds in front, at least in the real world, and that's caused by perspective. Again, we can't do this with a still image unless you're willing to cut up the image a bit and animate the parts separately. In this case, I don't really think it's necessary. I just want some subtle motion up here in the sky because there's so much motion down here on the water, and it would look funny if it stood perfectly still. Speaking of funny looking, the colors of the sky and the background don't match, so I'm going to need to do some color correction. Now this sky has a blue tint to it, which I don't really want, at least not too much of. So I'm going to select my cloud layer in the timeline and then choose Effect, Color Correction, Hue and Saturation. Then in the Effects panel, I'll set the Master Saturation down a bit. Let me bring it to about -25. Obviously, this is still not a perfect match, but we're going to take some steps to bring things closer together. To do that, we're going to remove some overall color because on a very cloudy day, there is less light, and less light means less visible color. Also, I'm going to tint the entire thing a bit to tighten up the color differences. So, I'll add an adjustment layer by choosing Layer, New, Adjustment Layer. Adjustment layers are great because they allow you to apply effects to every layer below themselves at once. Making sure that your adjustment layer is above both the sky and the background layer, and with the adjustment layer selected, choose Effect, Color Correction, Hue and Saturation. In the Effects panel, I'll turn on the Colorize switch, and then I'll set the Colorize hue to -160, which makes things a bluish, aqua-ish color. Way too saturated though, so let's set the Colorize saturation down to 10. Also, it's looking a bit too bright, so why don't we bring the Colorize lightness down to about -40. Okay, looking better, but all the color is gone now, and I'd like to maintain a little bit of the original color. So with the adjustment layer selected, hit T to reveal the opacity, and then in the timeline, set the opacity to 80%. As you can see, this brings back some of the original color, and that's because the adjustment layer is only impacting our composition to 80% of its potential. Keep in mind, most effects that you apply to an adjustment layer can be subtly tweaked by playing with its opacity value. Now at this point, I'm not sure if this is too much color or too little or possibly just right. I may decide to increase or decrease the value later. Color correcting is a process where you make tweaks to effects as you make other corrections so that you're not done until you're done. Wow, I sounded like Yogi Berra there. Okay, now let's work on the water, which seems a little too bright compared to the environment. Rather than lowering the overall brightness, I'm going to play with the levels a bit. With the water selected, choose Effect, Color Correction, Levels, and then in the Effects panel, I'll set the gamma to 0.80. In essence, we're adjusting the midtones here, with the goal being to pull out some of the highlights. I could also grab hold of the input black slider here and drag it to the left, which would darken the water and give it more contrast, but I'm not sure I need to actually do that. Again, it's a case-by-case basis. Also, there's a little bit of give and take here. If I do raise my input black value, the blue on the water becomes more pronounced, which means I should probably pull out more color, which I can do by raising the opacity value of the adjustment layer to 90%. Of course, this darkens the sky a bit too, which means I may want to add a levels effect to the sky as well. Or maybe I want to do something completely different. Maybe I want to work with the curves effect and adjust the color that way. There are a lot of things that you can do here. I'm not going to take it that far. I'm going to jump forward in time to where I've tweaked things slightly, playing with the input black and the opacity of my adjustment layer. Alright, a quick RAM preview and things are looking good. And if I wanted to add in the full video of the cloudy sky instead of just using the still image, it looks pretty darn cool. Okay, next, I'm going to add in some rain, but that will have to wait until next time. Whoo, psych! Once again, this is Aaron Rabinowitz for CreativeCow.net. Please don't hate me.